Chapter 89, Ling Tian's Aspiration. The next moment, all the ladies present looked over. The young lady who was painting also never imagined such a thing to happen and became anxious. Wei Zhuan, who had been watching silently by the side, had already understood the thoughts of the young lady who was painting and replied calmly, "I believe it's because of the humid atmosphere since we are beside a pond. Younger sister, it's best you keep this painting. This painting is extremely precious. If it were to be ruined by water, I'm afraid." As she said that, Wei Zhuan gave a profound smile but did not continue. It was as though she intentionally emphasized on the words precious painting. Yes. I thank elder sister for your reminder. This little sister was only interested in viewing the painting and forgot about that. The young lady replied cheerfully and looked towards Wei Zhuan with praise, admiring her quick wits. As for the words which Wei Zhuan emphasized on, she had completely ignored it, making Wei Zhuan roll her beautiful eyes. Under the envious gazes and sighs of all the ladies, the young lady carefully kept the painting. Looking at the reluctant gazes of the people present, she said with a smile, "If sisters would like to look at it, we can just go to a room." Only then did the ladies become excited, crowding around the four of them and taking a seat. They then broke out into chatters and laughter. Only Princess Zhao Yu was not familiar with painting and did not have much interest in it. Princess Zhao Yu only studied the young lady's expressions and noticed the unnatural expressions that she had. At this moment, doubt filled Princess Zhao Yu's heart as she tried to make a guess but to no avail. But if she were to say that this painting was painted by Ling Tian, Princess Zhao Yu would be the first to disagree to it. Ling Tian then brought his guards and left the imperial palace. As he was on his way back to the Ling mansion, he began to think about everything he saw, heard and experienced today. Just like the saying, understanding the leopard with a single spot, this saying described what Ling Tian felt right now. Based on Ling Tian's original guess, the little princess of the Yu family would have at least 4 experts guarding her. Even with such a lineup, they were able to completely hide from his information net, without a single bit of the news leaking out. This was something extremely difficult. Furthermore, this little princess of the Yu family actually appeared in the heavily guarded imperial palace with 3 experts guarding her. Besides that, there was even a super expert amongst the 3 guards. This had completely overturned what Ling Tian guessed previously. Just from this point alone, she would have at least 2 super experts by her side. As for ordinary experts, there should be at least 10 of them. These lineup of guards were probably the mere tip of the iceberg for the Yu family. If he were to follow along this estimation, the might of the Yu family was indeed deep and immeasurable. Ling Yan rejoiced in his heart. Thankfully, I realized that something was wrong from the beginning, being more careful. If I made a rash move and showed off all my abilities, I would have probably been. According to Ling Tian's estimate, the person hiding in secret is probably comparable to Ling Jian in strength. It was extremely rare to have an expert like that, but the Yu family definitely has more than 1 or 2 of them. As for the one running the Yu family, he is definitely much more powerful. The way Ling Tian saw it, the Yu family should not have any fear in this continent. Ling Tian was just puzzled about why the Yu family was still in hiding, even though they had such powerful strength. In fact, they tried their best to conceal their strength. If 1 or 2 generations did not dare to make a move, that was still understandable. But for a gigantic family like the Yu family to remain in hiding for 1,000 years, that was extremely strange. 1,000 years. The Yu family did not have anyone ambitious at all? Ling Tian would definitely not believe that. But just what was the reason behind it? Ling Tian felt a great headache. Before this, he had always wanted to know the strength of the Yu family. Now, he is able to make an estimation from the little princess of the Yu family. But the moment he understood it, he fell into a greater mystery. For them to remain in hiding even with such strength, they must have apprehensions about something else. Ling Tian thought to himself, but just what organization could make the Yu family apprehensive? If the Yu family, which had 1,000 years of accumulation, has apprehensions and remain in hiding, what can the power in my hand be considered? Ling Tian could not help but laugh bitterly. It seems that while I made long-term plans, I underestimated this world. I underestimated the heroes of this world. The guards who followed behind Ling Tian noticed that he had been lowering his head in thought ever since he came out from the imperial palace with his eyebrows furrowed. It was as though he met with something unpleasant in the imperial palace and was feeling sulky. Thus, they did not dare to say anything and only traveled silently along the streets with only the sound of the horses' hooves being heard. After entering the Ling mansion, Ling Tian handed the horses to the servant by the door and went to the courtyard he was staying at. While it was only a guess and he had only seen a small fragment of the Yu family's might, Ling Tian's heart still grew heavy. Some of his original arrangements must be changed immediately. "Stop there!" A loud cry sounded, full of majesty. His mother, Chu Tinger, had arrived. Ling Tian laughed bitterly as he thought to himself, the debt collector is here. It was not that Ling Tian had never thought of telling everything he was doing in secret to his mother to ease her worries. But every time he had the urge to come clean with her, he would suppress the thought. There was no other reason. With Chu Tinger's wisdom, she definitely had the rights to know about those matters and would definitely not leak them out. But the problem was that she was just too close to Ling Zhou and she would definitely not be able to hide it from him. But Ling Zhou was completely loyal to the Sky-bearing Empire and was filled with gratitude towards the current emperor. They even had a deep brotherhood between them. If his father were to find out about what he was doing, his father would probably realize what his intentions are. At that time, his father would definitely fly into a rage and it would be a miracle if his father does not tie him up and present him to the emperor. The organization which he had spent so much effort to build would definitely be confiscated by his father for sure. Such an outcome is something which he definitely cannot accept. Ever since he came to this world, he had never placed the royal family in his sights. He was influenced greatly by the phrase Sun Wukong said in The Journey to the West, the emperors would change every now and then. Next year, it will be my turn. Since he had already arrived in this world, how can he not leave something behind and make a legacy for himself? How can he come here just to kowtow to people all day? Since he had already died once, if he were to fail in this world, he would just die again. It wouldn't be much to him. However, his ambitions must not be changed. I, Ling Tian, did not come here to bow down to people. I also did not come here to be a sperm bank and find a few wives. I am called Ling Tian and I will rule the world. If he does not make a legacy for himself, it would be letting down the heavens for letting him come to this world. It would also be letting down his own name. Ruling the heavens. Controlling the heavens. Grasping all authority under the skies and being filled with beauties all around. This is the life that I, Ling Tian, wants. Without strength, even if I were to marry the most beautiful lady in the world, I will not be able to keep her. Be it the previous life or this life, no matter what world, strength is the most important. If you are only a pauper, would you dare to fall in love with a princess? But what if you become the owner of the world? I, Ling Tian, will never give up. I will grasp this world in my hands. No matter what the obstructions, I will kill the gods if they stop me, kill Buddha if Buddha stops me. Chapter 90, Heading to the Courtyard. Why are you back so early? It is only noon. Chu Tinger looked at her son with doubt. Ling Tian usually went out for a full day. Now that Ling Tian is home early, Chu Tinger found it surprising. Don't tell me he was chased home by the ladies? But it doesn't seem that case. If he were to be chased out, he would probably go elsewhere to play, right? Chu Tinger was certain she understood her son very well. She then thought, don't tell me he already has someone he likes? He is home so early to report it to me? Thinking about this, she could not help but ask with an excited expression, how did things go today? Ling Tian then laughed bitterly. This child went today and had a good chat with the ladies. But this child was afraid that mother would be worried and came home early. Chu Tinger snorted at her son's reply. Good chat? You had a good chat with the ladies? Afraid that I'm worried? Come home early. Since you're afraid that I would be worried, why did you rush to your own courtyard the moment you arrive home instead of coming to find me? Ling Tian was already used to such an attitude from his mother. There were too many ladies and this child can only remember a few. I think there was the young miss of General Shen and daughter of Minister Wei. As for the rest, this child cannot remember them already. Young miss of General Shen? Daughter of Minister Wei? Chu Tinger mumbled for a short while. Then, she flew into a rage. Bastard. These two ladies are talented ladies who are famous in the capital. They are proficient in alzither, chess, painting, calligraphy, poetry and singing. Your mother has also heard of them before. You will have a good chat with them? What kind of a joke are you cracking? I remember that when you last met her, she immediately touched her horsewhip. She will have a good chat with you? Ling Tian laughed bitterly. It is indeed the both of them. This child is not lying. At the same time, he thought to himself, I did indeed meet the both of them. It is just that one did not know my identity while the other was almost frightened to death by me. Chu Tinger shouted, still trying to lie. It will be a miracle if I were to believe you. Say, just what unsightly thing did you do again? That's why you rushed home? Ling Tian then replied bitterly, don't tell me mother thinks that this child is someone who will only cause trouble? Chu Tinger glared at him, what think? You are. Speak, what trouble did you cause? Ling Tian almost fainted. If mother does not believe, there will be two ladies who will visit this child in the next few days for sure. At that time, mother can just ask them. Two ladies who will visit you? Tanner, did I hear something wrongly? Chu Tinger asked with a look of incredulity and a trace of surprise. She thought to herself, these two ladies are both talented and extremely beautiful. It would be a wonderful thing if they take fancy to my son. She then asked, when are they coming? I will have to prepare a gift for them and host them well. Ling Tian rolled both of his eyes as he thought to himself, I'm only 15, isn't mother being too hasty? Giving them a gift so soon? Do you know the one who I want you to give something to is definitely not these two lass. He then replied, this. We did not decide on a time. They will come when they are free. Chu Tinger erupted with anger as she heard that. I knew that you were lying to me. What does when they are free means? If I have to wait for them to come visit this unfilial son of mine, my hair would probably turn white and they still would not come for a visit. Ling Tian's head drooped down in speechlessness. Chu Tinger then began to scold him again, but after seeing that he did not seem to be afraid at all, she lost the mood to scold him and commanded him to go back to his courtyard. But, she gave a long sigh and instructed him to go to the banquet for the next 2 days as well. These 3 days of gathering must definitely not be missed. If Ling Tian were to miss these few days, seeing these ladies again would be more difficult than flying to the heavens. As though he was freed from torture, Ling Tian ran back to his own courtyard and saw Ling Chen receive him with a concealed smile. As Ling Tian saw that, he knew that she must have been eavesdropping for sure. He also could not be bothered to teach her a lesson and instructed hastily, send out the news, command those 4 who are in charge of collecting news, Liu, Qi, Ba, Jiayu, and Feng, Yan, Lei, Diane, Qi to wait at the Ling family courtyard. We will go there immediately after lunch. Ling Chen replied without delay, yes. She then went back to the room to send out the news with a sparrow. Liu, Qi, Ba and Jiayu who Ling Tian called out were the elites which Ling Tian picked out back then. They were all orphans without a name or surname. Ling Tian then used numbers as their name, Ling Liu, Ling Qi, Ling Ba, and Ling Jiayu. These 4 people are now in charge of the east, south, west and north, the information of the 4 directions. 1. As for the channels of the information and manpower, Ling Tian only gave them the method and ignored everything else. The way Ling Tian put it was, if everything can only work if I do it personally, what do I need you guys for? Apart from passing on news, do not find me for anything else. If you run into trouble, do not come and find me either. Just do as you deem fit. Under such a high-pressure environment, the four of them grew up extremely swiftly. In just a few years, they already had a decent-sized information net. Apart from helping Ling Tian scout for information, they also sold information to organizations for a quick buck. After Ling Tian handed them a sum to start the information net, he demanded that they must be self-sufficient. These few years, they were all rather accomplished. Apart from being able to sustain themselves, they were even able to take out a large amount of silver to aid the training in the courtyard. This was something which Ling Tian had never expected. As for Feng, Yun, Lei, Diane, and Qi, they were chosen at the same time as well. Their names were Ling Yun, Ling Feng, Ling Lei, Ling Diane and Ling Qi. After Ling Tian trained them up well, he handed them all over to Ling Jian. Presently, the power under Ling Tian which was able to shock the world is the most mysterious assassination organization in the world, the First Pavilion. The main characters of the First Pavilion were these 5 people together with Ling Jian. Especially the youngest Ling Qi, the speed at which he improves is almost able to catch up to Ling Jian. Now that Ling Jian was sent to the north, everything would be instructed to them. 2. After lunch, Ling Tian did not bring any followers apart from Ling Chen and sprinted towards the Ling family courtyard on horses. As the city guards saw that it was the young master of the Ling family, how would they dare to say anything? They had already opened the city gates wide when Ling Tian was far away. After casually throwing some banknotes, the both of them did not stop and sprinted out of the city. After a short hour, they could already see the Ling family courtyard. The walls of the Ling family courtyard were completely built from azurite stone and was 400 feet high. It stood proud and tall in the middle of the willow forest. This was the first opinion which Ling Tian made when they were building the Ling family courtyard. The reason was to prevent people from spying into the premises. Duke Ling and old Madame Ling had came to the Ling family courtyard before as well. The first time they came, Duke Ling had felt the large ambition hidden within the high walls. At that time, Duke Ling only gave a long sigh and did not say anything else. He only instructed Ling Zhou to set up a military camp beside the Ling family courtyard with 5,000 people inside. The purpose of the military camp was not to spy on the courtyard, but for their sound of training to cover the similar voice coming from the courtyard. Ling Zhou had also came here a few times before. But every time he came, Ling Chen had long informed the courtyard and Ling Zhou was only able to see the splendid and magnificent houses in the courtyard. He just could not get used to seeing that and felt that it was the action of a silk pants. From then on, he decided not to visit anymore since he would only anger himself. Ling Tian would naturally be glad if he does not visit as it fits perfectly into his plan. Chapter 91, Upper Echelons Meeting. As they rode on their horses into the courtyard, they were greeted with a garden-like scenery with blue waters surrounding them, fake mountains erected. The feeling of spring, with flowers and bushes all around with a wonderful fragrance. It made one feel as though they were in the holiday resort of a duke. After going past the front hall, there was a small training field with white populous trees around it. Behind the trees were neatly arranged houses able to fit a few thousand people. Every door had a short willow tree beside it, swaying in the wind. By the sides of the doors, there were 2 pots of flowers, making it look like the residence of the common folk. It was there to fool people. Walking in deeper, their view suddenly widened, walking into a large, well-equipped plaza capable of holding 10,000 people at once. After crossing the plaza, Mount Victory would be up ahead. For the construction of the outer wall and houses, Ling Tian ordered that the required rocks can only be extracted from Mount Victory. At the same time, He sent someone to specially oversee the whole excavation process. After the courtyard was fully completed, almost half of Mount Victory was dug away. The large volume of rocks being dug out formed a deep cave with 2 huge stone doors on the outside. Apart from a large training room, a few stone chambers were dug out as per Ling Tian's request. This place was the real secret base. Only after achieving an outstanding result on the outside will they have the chance to enter this cave to train. Those training in the cave would be changed every month, with every batch being completely different. In the eyes of Ling Tian's private army of 20,000, it was a glorious affair to be able to enter the cave. Entering the cave would mean that they received the approval of the young noble. Thus, in order to enter the cave, everyone would train like mad. As such, their strength had rose rapidly. As the 8 burly guards saw Ling Tian arrived, they took a bow and opened the stone door. Ling Tian did not stop as he instructed, "Call Feng, Yun, Lei, Qi, Dian, and Liu, Qi, Ba, Jiu, Shi to my study." After acknowledging his command, they went to inform the relevant people. A short while later, the people who Ling Tian requested for arrived at his study. While it was called a study, it was actually a cave with a few simple table and chairs. Ling Tian nodded his head as he saw that everyone had arrived. Then, he pressed a switch on the table. With the sound of grinding gears, the stone wall behind Ling Tian flipped open, revealing a large space. In the middle of the space was a large, oval stone desk with chairs filled around it. It looked exactly like a modern-day conference room. In truth, Ling Tian had modeled this room after a modern-day conference room. By the side of the walls, there were large bookcases with blank spaces separating many small compartments, being stuffed with different information. Every compartment would have the name of an empire, aristocratic family, with the large majority being filled with names. This was Ling Tian's information gathering net. In these few years, he had collected news from all over the continent. Every other day, there will be someone who would come here to categorize the information and arrange it neatly. This was like the archive room from his previous life. Anyone who is able to enter this room had either followed him since he was young, or was nurtured by Ling Tian from young. They were all the aides which he trusted. These were the core personals in his current organization. All of them stood up straight with hands behind their backs as they looked at Ling Tian with a face full of worship and admiration. While Ling Tian was like a good-for-nothing youth in the Ling family, he was the Iron Mask Hades in the Ling family courtyard. As Ling Tian grew up, his authority began to grow as his body gradually began to emanate prestige and majesty. In front of Ling Tian, they all felt as though they were looking at the peak of a tall mountain. Ling Tian sat down calmly at the head of the table and Ling Chen stood behind him with a chilly face, her cold gaze sweeping past the whole crowd. Out of respect for Ling Tian, they did not dare to look down on Ling Chen either. They all knew that Ling Chen was the closest to Ling Tian. Thus, they would only call her Miss Chen usually and would not address her by her name. Furthermore, everyone in front of Ling Tian now had suffered under Ling Chen before. While they knew that she was Ling Tian's personal maid, her martial arts was also a head above the rest. In the Ling family courtyard, only Ling Jian, who everyone feared, was able to compete with her. The rest of them were not even able to last 10 moves against her. As such, they were all afraid of this cold but beautiful lady. They knew that if they offended Ling Tian may still let them off the hook and give them a lenient punishment. But if they were to frustrate Ling Chen, it would be worse than frustrating their young noble. It would probably be useless even if Ling Jian were to personally plead on their behalfs. After glancing at everyone, Ling Tian said calmly, "Take a seat." Everyone acknowledged and sat down silently. They then looked at Ling Tian, knowing that their young noble would probably have something big to tell them. Just when Ling Tian wanted to open his mouth, he thought of something and instructed, "Ling Qi, go and call Feng Mo and Wang Han over. There is something for me to instruct them today." Ling Qi was a scrawny teen with a resolute gaze. After hearing Ling Tian's instructions, he acknowledged it and left swiftly. Ling Tian then hammered the stone desk lightly with his finger as he asked, "Ling Chi is in charge of the south, right?" A well-built young man stood up and said, "Yes, young noble." Ling Tian responded with a and said, "Go and take out all the information regarding the marriages of the children in the Nangong family. Also, bring out all the information on Nangong La and Nangong Yu, together with their relationship with the successor. Bring out anything related to these things. I want them in front of me before Feng Mo arrives." Without a change in expression, Ling Chi said, "Yes." He then stood up and walked to the bookcase to search for the information. "Ling Jiu, go and take out the same information regarding the Ying family. Ling Liu, information on the Yu family." "Yes, young noble." The stone door then opened gently as two maids walked in, one holding hot water and the other holding a tea set. After placing a cup of tea in front of everyone, they left silently. From the start to the end, they did not dare to lift their head and look at Ling Tian. When they glanced at him occasionally, their gazes would be full of worship and gratitude. Ling Tian then read through the information Ling Chi and Ling Jiu presented to him with his eyebrows furrowed. Reporting to young noble, Feng Mo and Wang Han requests to enter. Ling Tian responded with a "oh." While it wasn't loud, it passed through the door, entering into the ears of the person outside. Feng Mo and Wang Han then walked in respectfully. The both of them were filled with explosive muscles, burly and tall. Chapter 92, Deploying once more. Ling Tian folded up the reports in his hands and said blandly, "Sit." As the crowd shuffled to their respective places, Ling Tian continued, "Feng Mo, Wang Han, the reason I've called you here today is to inform you guys that the training from now on will not be paused. However, in terms of noise, try to keep it to the minimum and do not attract any attention by doing something overly big. This is to prevent any unwanted attention." Noted. Young noble, is there anybody who wants to deal with us? Both Feng Mo and Wang Han stood upright as they gave out sounds of assent. However, Wang Han asked a question out of puzzlement. Ling Tian merely lifted up the teacup in front of him, lightly blowing on the surface of the tea, not bothering to reply. He did not even glance at Wang Han, as though the latter had never spoken. Ling Chen, Ling Chi, Ling Feng as well as the others in the room all suddenly developed frosty expressions. In that instant, 7 to 8 pairs of eyes viciously glared at Wang Han. These assassins, who were even feared by the military forces everywhere, did not even bother to conserve a bit of their killing intent towards him. If it were not for the fact that Ling Tian was merely sitting there calmly, Wang Han would have long turned into a cold corpse. And that corpse would definitely not be intact. At this point, Wang Han's face already resembled a waterfall, the cold sweat dripping unceasingly off his forehead. What a joke, to be able to remain standing with so many killing intents from world-famous assassins targeted at him would already be an achievement. As for Feng Mo standing beside him, his face took on a huge change when he heard Wang Han speak, and naturally also glared at him. He could not help but regret that he could not beat him up on the spot. Peng. The teacup was placed back on the table as Ling Tian slowly spoke, "Forget it. This shall be the first, and also the last time." Once he spoke, Wang Han suddenly could feel that the suffocating killing intent had suddenly vanished, as though it was never there in the first place. Everybody's eyes were still glued to him, but it was already lacking the previously ferocious intent. Wang Han's legs were trembling non-stop, his shirt already drenched with sweat. He stood there, eyes wide open, not knowing what had just transpired. Why was it that a single sentence of his resulted in everyone wanting to kill him? Ling Chen then remarked coldly, "Wang Han, you should celebrate that Ling Tian is not here today. Or else, the moment you opened your mouth, you would have already turned into a corpse." Ling Tian waved that comment away, saying, "Forget it. Feng Mo, you two can leave first." Feng Mo respectfully gave a solemn bow and dragged Wang Han out with a hand. Though Wang Han was still standing straight, he had no strength left in his legs and was on the verge of collapse. Only upon walking out of the stone door of the cave, did Wang Han finally regain his senses. He then asked in a trembling voice, "Old Feng, what just happened? What did I say wrongly?" Feng Mo glared at him for a long time, before his gaze turned slightly gentler as he sighed, "You have never been to the secret chamber, right?" Wang Han nodded silently. Feng Mo continued in a harsh tone, "That secret chamber is where the young noble personally assigns his commands and orders. Everybody who steps into there does not talk. They only need to follow his orders, and this is without exception. After stepping out of that door, even if you want to engage the young noble in a spar, no one will stop you. They would only jeer at you for overestimating your capabilities. However, if you dare to speak out of line in the secret chamber, that signifies disrespect to the young noble. Lady Chen was correct in saying that you would be dead if Ling Tian was present. He would definitely not allow anyone to challenge the young noble's authority." Thinking of Ling Tian, who was akin to Hades from hell, Wang Han's forehead began to sweat profusely once again. It was only after a long time did he manage to say, "Why didn't you tell me that earlier?" Feng Mo looked at him, giving a smile that was not a smile at the same time. "I thought that you had went in there before." Wang Han muttered to himself, seemingly cursing and swearing at Feng Mo. He was also one of the 36 Blood Iron Warriors and always had a close relation with Feng Mo. It was only because he had an outstanding performance recently, that he was promoted to become Feng Mo's assistant. Feng Mo sighed as he spoke, "It took me such a long time to actually see the young noble once, and I actually wanted to talk to him more, to see if he could give me some pointers. But it was ruined by you." He held back another sentence, which was the fact that being allowed entry into the secret chamber meant that Ling Tian had given Feng Mo the authority and trust of one in his inner circle. However, because of Wang Han's fault, this matter would be delayed for another few months. If Wang Han were to realize how serious the repercussions of his sentence was, he would be guilty for a long time. Inside the secret chamber, Ling Tian told whatever that he inferred from the little princess of the Yu family to them and added in his own hypothesis. All of them displayed an expression of shock without exception. Ling Tian then continued, "Ling Qi, don't let the first pavilion take any business from the north, and try to avoid the Yu family." Since Ling Jian was not around, the first pavilion was supervised by Ling Qi, who was the youngest in age. Other than Ling Jian, Ling Qi was the strongest in the first pavilion. Ling Tian took in a deep breath, before giving more instructions. The first pavilion might not be moving around in the north, but Ling Liu, Qi, Ba, Jiayu, the four of you must tighten your surveillance in the north instead. Other than Ling Liu, who was originally responsible for the north, the other three must also put in your best efforts to assist him. Every little detail must be thoroughly investigated and report all findings back to the courtyard as soon as possible. The four of them stood up simultaneously. "Yes, young noble." "Notify Ling Shiyi and get him to train another batch of messenger falcons as fast as he can." "Yes." "Also notify Ling Wu to stop smelting the regular sabers and swords and to stop all outside transactions. Intensify the production of the high-quality weapons that I've talked about to him. Ask him to hurry up as well. Within a year, I want all our brothers to be equipped with the better quality swords and sabers. This matter cannot be leaked as well." "Yes, young noble." "Inform Ling San and Li Lin to speed up the infiltration of the Violent Wind Gang into the officials of the Imperial Court. Especially for the Rights Minister, Wei Jingfeng. Special attention must be given to him. I want them to scrutinize every single person who enters and leaves his mansion. Where they went, what they did, I want to know every single detail without any negligence. Furthermore, all of you have to be careful as there may be experts hidden in Wei Jingfeng's house. Those who are deployed there have to be trustworthy." As he finished, Ling Tian's tone seemed to be more gentle. "Yes, Young noble can be assured of this. Ling Qi, notify Ling Tian, tell him to tie up his loose ends and return back soon. Yes. Young noble, I'll inform my big brother immediately. Good. Ling Tian smiled. Everyone could then feel the tension in the room subsequently relax. All of these people sitting here were the confidants of Ling Tian. So, they all knew that Ling Tian would smile after issuing out all of his orders to mark the end of the meeting. Once he smiled, this would mean that the matters for today had come to an end. But, Ling Tian's next sentence made all those from the first pavilion reveal bitter expressions. After we get out, all those from the first pavilion, come spar with me. I'll check out your progress, and you can let your sister Chen loosen her muscles a little too. Feng, Yan, Lei, Diane and Shi looked at the eager Ling Chen and exchanged a look of despair with each other. Their young noble was better in the regard that he knew how to hold back. But, their sister Chen did not hold back any punches. It was more like being tortured rather than giving pointers. Chapter 93, Testing the Yu Family. Ling Tian and Ling Chen were on horseback, rushing back to the Ling residence. Chen'er, how was it just now? Seeing Ling Chen's flushed cheeks, full of joy, Ling Tian could not resist laughing. Ling Chen pouted in response, those few jerks are becoming more and more sly, it took me a lot more trouble to beat them up this time. Ha ha ha, how easy did you expect it to be? As Ling Tian thought of how the five of them lying on the ground in miserable conditions when he and Ling Chen left, he could not help but laugh out loud. Even though those fellows were mostly pretending, it was no lie that they did suffer under the hands of Ling Chen. Ling Tian had merely given them a few tips before he left the courtyard with Ling Chen. Ling Chen shook her waist, rolling her eyes flirtatiously at him. Then, she giggled and urged her horse forward, rushing in front. Ling Tian laughed as he chased after her. Their conversation was faintly discernible, drifting about in the wind. Tonight, you can go try out that secretive. In the rights minister's residence. The lanterns were lit in the early evening, turning the residence into a mass of flickering lights. Within a specially constructed courtyard, a few people sat facing each other with grim expressions on their faces. With the same disguised face, the little princess of the Yu family, Yu Bingyan, sat between two parties, a hand propping up her chin with her expression filled with worry. Those two middle-aged women who had accompanied her during the daytime were sitting by one side. Inside the room, there were another 5 to 6 more people, all seated in an orderly position. In the shadows of the room sat another indistinct silhouette, without uttering a single word. That young nobleling definitely hidden himself very well. Someone so knowledgeable yet able to conceal himself so well, this is the first time I met someone like that. One of the middle-aged women was talking. In her tone, one could sense traces weariness as well as an unrestrained admiration. That's right. Although this man is well-learned and cultured, his schemes run deep. This humble one feels that little princess should maintain your distance from him. The other middle-aged female bodyguard replied. Yu Bingyan's brows knitted in hesitation before turning to the silent figure enveloped in darkness. Uncle Zhu, you've always been by my side, what do you think of this? The shadow at the corner shook, and it was only after a long while did he finally reply. His voice was sonorous and grating, much like two metals colliding with each other. I am unable to see through this person. He feels very dangerous. Dangerous? Uncle Zhu, could you possibly be mistaken? He is only a feeble scholar, how could he let you feel danger? And where would the danger be from? Yu Bingyan giggled as she spoke. He definitely feels dangerous. Uncle Zhu, who was in the shadows, did not attempt to refute her, and only heavily repeated what he just said before closing his mouth. Yu Bingyan pondered deeply for a while before revealing a desolate expression in her eyes. Even though he might be dangerous, but what else can I do? I only wish to learn painting from him. What else could I amount to with my body, my status, as well as my incoming fate? Everyone turned solemn at this, as they looked towards Yu Bingyan with concern in their eyes. One of the middle-aged women could not help but comfort her. If little princess only wishes to learn painting from him, that can be easily settled. The celebration will go on for another 3 days and he will definitely reappear. At that time, if little princess could request for him to teach you together with Lady Wei, I'm sure he won't reject you, right? Although this was phrased as a question, the woman's tone was full of confidence. Yu Bingyan slowly nodded and did not mention this matter any longer. Obviously, she had already came to a decision in her heart. Turning her head instead, she addressed those beside her. How about the other side? Any news? The way she asked had no heads nor tails, but it was clear that all present understood her meaning. The other female bodyguard moved her mouth, but no sound came out from it. Finally, she lowered her head instead. Yu Bingyan only responded calmly, "It's alright, just speak your mind. The outcome has long been set, what are you so hesitant about?" The female bodyguard in question replied in a low voice, "Based on reports, Miss Shui is blessed with extraordinary intelligence and is already a top-class expert. She has begun to practice the family's sword art." Yu Bingyan smiled lightly as she said, "She has already started on the family's sword art? Haha, most likely she has already mastered it, hasn't she?" Lowering her head with a sigh, she continued, "I've long wanted to pay her a visit and have a heart-to-heart talk with her. After all, we both have the same fate, who knows, we might actually end up as friends. Haha, then this would be such a great story. 3 years. There's still 3 years. There's only 3 years." At the last part, she sighed once more. A lingering sigh sounded from her frail and delicate chest, full of helplessness and sorrow. As though infected by the little princess's melancholic mood, the crowd sunk into silence. Thinking about the little princess's fate, everyone immediately felt as though they were being pressed down by a heavy stone slab, pressured to the point of being unable to breathe. From the window outside, there was a sudden sound of clothes rustling, followed by a light laughter resounding in everyone's ears. The shadowy figure hidden in the corner suddenly twisted his body. Sword light flashed past the crowd's eyes, as man and sword, combined as one, pierced through the window. This was followed by ding-ding sounds as the weapons clashed with each other outside, as though a torrential downpour had started. The group of people all ran out into the courtyard, raising their heads to catch sight of the unknown intruder. What they saw made them all take in a breath of cold air. A blur of black and white flashed past each other. For a moment, no one could tell each of them apart. They only knew that the drifting black shadow was the shadowy figure belonging to their side. But, the agile white shadow was indistinct and they could only assume it was a woman from the party's lithe figure. The two swords flashing in the night sky was incomparably magnificent. Occasionally, both figures would soar through the air and exchange a few blows, then stagger apart from each other. However, by the next moment, both halves would have merged back into one whole. Their movement skills were exquisite beyond belief. Suddenly left, then right, appearing south, then north, akin to spirits. Dang! The crisp sound of weapons clashing sounded, as sparks flew in all directions mid-air. Both parties did an aerial flip, separating from each other and landed far apart with swords still pointed towards the other person. Two pairs of eyes let out equally ice-cold expressions, staring unblinkingly at the other. Only then was the audience able to see that the white shadow was actually a masked person dressed totally in white, with a tall stature and delicate curves. Behind the mask was a pair of limpid eyes akin to the autumn waters and long hair like a waterfall cascading down. This elegant figure of a woman stood on the rooftop, looking like an immortal who had descended down to earth. The sword in her hand looked like a river under the moonlight. Even after such a fierce confrontation, she actually remained relaxed, unrestrained and elegant. The black shadow stood up straight with sword pointing forward, the sword tip shaking incessantly, leaving after images behind. Evidently, All his energy had been compressed into the sword he was holding. Once he moved, it would be akin to a flash of lightning. After that brief exchange, both parties had a rough gauge of their opponent's strength in their hearts. Though the girl in white was young, she could be considered one of the most skilled experts the man had ever met in his life. Now that the little princess was residing in the Sky-bearing Empire, the presence of such an expert is definitely a grave threat. The Black Shadow had made a resolute decision in his heart: no matter the consequences, I cannot let this girl leave tonight. A cool breeze blew gently, the robes of both waving in it. The white-robed girl's body seemed to follow the gentle breeze to float upwards, and with a flick of her slim wrist, the sword in her hands transformed into a dazzling brilliance, tearing apart the night sky. To think she took the initiative to attack. Her sword was like an antelope's horns thrusting forward, leaving no vestiges behind. The sword intent flowed like waters in a spring, continuous and unbroken. The Black Shadow, who was about to release his own move, suddenly turned sluggish as he exclaimed in shock, "Water of heavenly wind." Once this sentence was spoken, all the experts within the Yu family crowd had a complete change in expression. In the corner of the small courtyard, another Black Shadow suddenly rushed towards the sky like an arc of electricity. The sword in his hands appeared like a venomous snake, aimed at the back of the white-robed lady. It was as though hearing the four words "water of heavenly wind" had triggered some sort of response within him, making him attack with no concern for his own safety. With one in front and one behind, both black-robed men attacked at the same time in a pincer attack. The white-robed girl flipped upwards, avoiding the sword in front of her. With a flash of her sword, much like a bolt of lightning, it clashed with the sword behind her. The man behind her had urged on with his full strength, but discovered, to his shock, that her sword seemed to be without any strength, as light as a feather. He could not help but exclaim in his heart, "I was tricked." What happened next was even more surprising. After receiving the sword head-on, the lady in white did not rely on the force to pull apart their distance. Instead, she flipped upwards 30 feet into the air. Right now, she had nothing to rely on for support in mid-air. With the old force fading off and no new force applied, she was in a perilous situation. Seeing how she actually dug her own grave, both the black-robed men were flabbergasted. But, they raised their swords to await the moment she dropped down, for that would be the time for her to go to the Yellow Springs.